A very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining our Homeopathy 24/7 podcast. We are going to be speaking to an array of international guests who will share their knowledge and experiences of homeopathy with you. We will discuss all types of subjects such as remedies, symptoms, and stories of health. No matter where you are with your homeopathic journey, we aim to inspire you on your quest to natural health and living. The podcast is brought to you by Mary Greensmith, the founder of Homeopathy 24/7, which is a global platform connecting you with a homeopath wherever you are in the world, 24 hours a day. So let's get started with today's chat. Please welcome Mary Greensmith.
Hello, thank you very much for joining us. Lovely to see you all, and I'm really excited to welcome back Anjum Rahmatulla. Welcome, Anjum.
Hi, Mary. Good to be back.
It's nice to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yes, the sun is shining today, so that's good.
Well, that is good. That's more of a
Doesn't
bad
always shine.
And obviously winter's coming on. So does that mean you get busy with lots of acute problems happening?
I think one is seeing quite a lot of coughs, which come on with the change in the weather.
Yeah.
Lots of throat issues, tonsillitis, stroke strep, other respiratory problems. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And I know that you run a really busy group, Homeopathy for Strep throat, UTIs, and other infections. Tell me a little bit about that group.
Okay, so the focus is really on infections, and strep throat is something that is so common, as well as UTIs. Those, I would say, are the two top infections that seem to plague people and that people want natural solutions for. So we wanted to focus on those specifically, but it also covers other types of infections, all kinds of infections, and there's an infinite number of infections, really. So I won't even try to go into a big list.
No, absolutely. So just so that we're understanding, in the group, it's a Facebook group. People can come and join the Facebook group and they can learn more about homeopathy for infections, and they can learn what they can do themselves and when they need a homeopath.
Yes. So we are there primarily to guide people and to help them learn about homeopathy. A lot of people who join are not familiar with homeopathy, but there are others who are. So there's everything, there's a whole range of people there. And we have lots of posts on not just the remedies that you might consider for specific infections like UTIs, but also on what is the difference between the two types of ways that we tend to analyze people's health, which is in an acute focus or a more chronic focus or recurrent focus. So there's we help people with what to look for in terms of symptoms. What should we be looking for? How do we find a remedy? And so there is very basic stuff, but also there is information for people who know a lot more about homeopathy. So we try and cover all ends.
Okay, so just go back then, just to explain to me and just explain for the listeners, what do you mean exactly by acute infection and a chronic infection? Let's
Okay.
just get that out
Yeah.
first.
That's a really important distinction that we make. So I would say an acute infection is one that tends to, it usually, when we try and explain it, it's something that's happened very recently in the last few days, possibly in the last couple of weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, and that's it. Why is it acute? It's like a snapshot of the here and now. And it tends to be quite intense. It can come on slowly, but also very quickly. And the symptoms that a person has, fever, sore throat, pain when peeing, these are all quite intense, though they don't have to be. And we tend to focus on those very specifically. If you didn't do anything, didn't take anything, those symptoms would probably go away by themselves. But homeopathy helps to speed up the healing process. What is a chronic or recurrent situation? So that is when, for example, you have a child who has tonsillitis, and then 2 months later, she gets it again. A month later, she gets it again, or a similar sort of situation with a UTI. So you're seeing a situation where they might recover from the first acute, but then they go into another one, and then another one, and another one. And I see that quite often. Now, this is different. You can treat each of those separately as acutes, but it wouldn't necessarily stop the next one from occurring. So you're seeing a pattern here of repetition. So it's not a one-off.
Okay.
And for that, we look and we prescribe differently. We look at different things. So we're looking at the person's health as a whole. I go, and I'm talking about myself, I go back to the health history, how it has developed over time. Why do I do that? Because I want to pick up any patterns that there might be. What is the same? What is different? Also looking at their family history. Now, a lot of people will have tonsillitis or large tonsils in, on their father's side, their mother's side, their grandmother, their grandfather, etc., etc. It does tend to run in families. And that information can be very useful at some point when you are prescribing remedies for them. But the whole point of a chronic consultation, where you're getting a lot more information compared to an acute consultation, is that you are trying to go deeper. You are trying to make the person stronger so that they are less susceptible to getting the infections at a future date. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, absolutely. And that helps us understand that, yes, we can do acute prescribing, but if it's coming back, we need to do a lot deeper healing. We need to be addressing the cause of that.
Yes. I think, yeah, I didn't mention the cause. Trying to find the cause is so important in homeopathy. If one can find a cause, whether it is for an acute problem or for a chronic or recurrent problem, that brings us much closer to finding a good remedy that will address the issues.
Okay. So this is the question I want to ask, because I find that homeopathy is really good at helping people not only learn about remedies and addressing the cause, but it also helps them learn about their own healing and about how their body works and about what each part of the body does. And because, we're just kind of learning about so much more because we're asking questions. We're asking questions all of the time. And so what I want to have a discussion about is actually, do we need tonsils anyway? They go to the hospital, they go to the doctor and they say, right, no problem, let's just take the tonsils out. I had my tonsils taken out when I was 4 years old. I obviously didn't have a choice, a conversation about it. It was the most traumatic thing ever. Why aren't people told what the tonsils do? And are they important?
It's a great question. Why are they not told? Well, when you Google tonsils, Google is full of the first line of wherever you're looking will say tonsils are part of the immune system. And you think, yeah, that's right, it is. But how come why is that not taken seriously? I'm not a doctor. I wasn't trained medically, so I don't know why doctors don't take it more seriously. But um, it is seen as being the easiest way, conventionally, to deal with enlarged tonsils or tonsillitis or strep throat if it's recurrent. What happens when you take the tonsils out is that because the cause has not been addressed, the imbalance that is in the body is going to move somewhere else. Now, we don't know where that might go. For different people, it will go different ways. It might go deeper into the chest, or it might move somewhere else, to infections in the bladder, for example. But we do know that health issues are not resolved just by taking tonsils out. And how do we know that? Because people come back after tonsils have been taken out, and they will talk about other health issues. Or they'll say, since that particular operation, we noticed that this changed or that changed. And whilst we cannot say cause and effect definitively, if we see enough of that happening in our experience, we obviously are going to make connections and use that to inform the work that we do.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes so much sense, doesn't it?
So yeah, tonsils are important for our immunity. We breathe through our nose and our mouth. So adenoids as well as tonsils, in fact, are involved in the immune system. So if they are not there, then there has to be a backup for that. But that still means your immune system has to be working well. And if one part of it which doesn't work so well,
Yeah.
is taken out, then it's going to put load on other parts of the system which shouldn't be there. So if we could resolve the tonsil issue without having to take them out, then it's a much more balanced way of looking at things and for the body to heal.
It makes sense, doesn't it? So just learning what are the alternatives. And I guess homeopathy is an alternative. It's a choice, isn't it, that we can try and see if we can resolve.
Yes, it is an alternative. I mean, some people, who are new to homeopathy would find that possibly hard to believe or hard to understand. But it takes time also. So if you're looking for a quick solution, then I would say to people, you might need to be patient. Sometimes the effect of homeopathy is very immediate, and you can see that very much in acute conditions. But for recurrent problems, I think that if someone was to say, my child has large tonsils, what can you do about it? I can say, yes, give me at least 6 months, please. Minimum.
Yeah.
Some people might be very fast, but I find that the tonsils may take longer than a couple of months to resolve, especially if they've been there for a long time. So if they have been there for even a couple of years, that's not going to disappear overnight.
No. So you mean
You know,
enlarged tonsils if they've had, enlarged
yeah.
tonsils for a while. So, and you're quite right. We do need that time, and it's important because we actually might have to go back to those inherited susceptibilities, to the reason why the tonsils inflame more than perhaps they need to. And I mean, if you think about my own circumstance, actually, after having my tonsils out, I then became, I had allergies and I had eczema and then I got asthma as well. So it makes sense that actually, if I had the opportunity to address the original cause of allergies and susceptibilities in that way, then, I might have had a different health history, perhaps. So going back and addressing the cause, let's talk about miasmatic remedies. Let's talk about the sorts of things that we are looking for that might indicate that we need to go back perhaps to you as a baby or even your parents.
Yeah. Well, I suppose I'm thinking of people that I've treated and looking at their health history. So my first protocol is to treat the person, and I would try and find a remedy that suits them as a person in order to build their strength and immunity. Sometimes that remedy works, but only so far. Other times it doesn't work at all, and you think, okay, let me go back and check what else am I missing. And then you remember, oh, the mother had this, or the father had that, and there was a grandparent or an uncle involved. And you think, okay, there is a history here that needs addressing. So what do we do in those circumstances? Can we do anything? And the answer is yes, we can do something. And we need to, so there are different ways of finding the appropriate remedy, but there are remedies that will how should I put it? I'm trying to find the right word. Ease the burden of inheritance. Um, so it's not that you can eliminate something completely from your life because it's part of your DNA, but if you can do something that will minimize the impact on your health, that is what miasmatic remedies do, I think.
Okay. Okay. I think that's a really nice way of putting it, actually. And I think we can strengthen those weaknesses that we are born with by having certain remedies. And quite often when we think of miasmatic remedies, they are really deep acting remedies, aren't they? If we think about carcinosin and tuberculinum and we know that they are remedies that we hold in and they carry on holding and building gently. They act very, very differently than the acute remedies, perhaps if we used Hepasulf or Merc-Viv, something like that. So it's treating in a different way, effectively, isn't it? It's a different part.
It is because you're looking at the inherited symptom
Yeah.
in greater detail. And I suppose I would ask, what is, can you tell if your tonsils or your UTI or whatever it is, was it something that is similar? Or fungus infection, actually, I'm just thinking of one of
Mm.
my clients who's inherited fungal infections in her feet. And her mother had it, her father had it. And so you try and see if you can get more information about that, that will add to the information you already have about the individual, and then find a remedy which covers all three people. Obviously, one doesn't know, you can't go much further. You don't know what your great, great, great grandparents did, wanted, liked, and suffered from. But if you had TB in the family, for example, I mean, that's a very common one. And we all have had a family that have had TB. I mean, we must have.
Yeah.
So if there are certain symptoms that you might think belong to the tubercular miasm, sorry, that's jargon, but then you would be considering using a specific nosode, which is the remedy tuberculinum for that. And similarly with the other nosodes that we have in our materia medica. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it all adds up to explaining how we might be helping somebody in many different ways. We don't just have one way of prescribing homeopathy, do we? We have
No.
many different ways of prescribing homeopathy. And that is why it's so individual, because for some people, we'll go straight to treating holistically, perhaps through the constitutional remedy. Other people need an organ support remedy or a miasmatic remedy, as well as an infection remedy or acute remedy for right now. And so depending on the symptoms that you come with, you will have a completely different treatment plan than the next person with the same diagnosis.
Yes, which is why symptoms are so important. And I think that's something that people unfamiliar with homeopathy find it's like, what? I mean, what are you talking about? Symptoms? What symptoms? My child is restless or my child is congested. And so what I try and explain on our Facebook group is that we need to break down congestion into the details. So what are the details? Is it congestion in the nose? Is it congestion in the throat? If there is mucus, what does it look like? What is the consistency? Um, what else? Those sorts of questions, which people aren't necessarily thinking about or observing, and I don't blame them. Why would you? It's not something that you would do unless you were a homeopath. But that's the kind of detail that we need in order to distinguish between different remedies, and that distinction then helps you to find that unique remedy for that person, which will be different from, my remedy will be different from your remedy.
Yes, yeah, that really brings it all together, because actually what you just explained were the symptoms are finding the remedy that's right for you. And by us giving you these questions, by you answering these questions, you're finding out more about actually how your body reacts. Which means that you're learning more about your symptoms and more about yourself. And I think that's what's lovely. And we find in the groups is that people are getting used to knowing what we need to find out. And for me, homeopathy is all about you taking back responsibility of your health and understanding. And so you need this knowledge. You need to know what your body's doing. You need to know more about the remedies, and you definitely need to know how to collect a whole symptom picture.
Yes, yes. It's a learning process. It's not something that you would necessarily know without starting on this journey. Your observation skills grow by leaps and bounds. And the questions that you ask also, some might regard as being quite strange. But when you see the results from having put in that work, and used your observations to inform your remedy choice, I think that is a great spur to learning more. So start with basic. That's what I would say. Start with basics. Don't try and jump too many hurdles in one go.
Uh-huh.
Learn the building blocks and then build slowly on them. And yeah, you will see that it works.
It's fantastic, isn't it? And on your group, do you share some cases? Do you share some examples of what happens? Do you share some good results?
I do. I write several blogs, and my blogs, in particular, I write on some of my cases of people who have used homeopathy for whatever, and I explain why I chose a particular remedy. And but I do I hasten to add that, and I write that in my blogs as well, that just because one remedy works for one person doesn't necessarily mean that it'll work for somebody else. So people are very keen on finding out which remedy did you use? And I understand that completely. By giving the name of the remedy, I always say to people, please don't assume that this is the remedy that you can use for X, Y, and Z,
Yes, you're
because
absolutely
it'll
right.
almost certainly be different.
Okay. Okay, so actually what we need to be helping people with is finding the right remedy for them that's going to be helping them with the acute symptoms right now, but also perhaps helping that building the immunity as well. Let's talk about that. Is it possible to help somebody with homeopathy to become more resilient to infections?
Absolutely. Resounding yes.
Excellent.
How do I know? Because I see it. I see it with children. I see it with adults. People, I have somebody that I treated last year, a little girl who was, I think, 3 years old, and she started getting sore throats on a regular basis when she started nursery. Now, it's quite common when children go to nursery that they pick up bugs, but it was every month. And the gaps were getting less and less. She was staying at home more and more. And she actually got the remedy tuberculinum. And a couple of months afterwards, when I assessed how she changed, she was back at nursery. Her energy levels had gone up. Her behavior had improved. And something that the parents were not at all concerned about, she was not, she had to wear a nappy at bedtime during the night. And she decided that that time had now come to an end. Now, we don't know if the remedy had anything to do with it, but these are the little things that you pick up
Yes.
on a regular basis,
Yeah.
which are not one-offs. And I think that the remedy helped her to mature.
Yes.
So yeah, she got much better. I have lots of examples of that happening. Lots.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So what we will do is put down below the podcast here, we'll put down the information on your Facebook group as well as your website so they can go and have a look at some of your stories and find out exactly what you're doing to help other people learn about using homeopathy to get some great results.
Yeah, no, we're delighted. We welcome anyone who would like to join us, and really, I really hope that you would enjoy the group and that you will learn from it. But there's loads and loads of interesting posts and people discussing remedies and other things. So it's a good place to be.
It's a great learning curve. Thank you very much, Anjum. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mary.
I do hope you've enjoyed these episodes, and I do hope you can subscribe to our channels. Now, there are various ways for you to listen to our podcast or watch it on video on YouTube. So whether it's iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube, please do subscribe and please do leave us a review. If you leave us a review on these platforms, then more people will see our podcast. We just want more people to share the joy of homeopathy. It's a choice that everybody should know about. Please do everything you can to help us help more people.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and look forward to listening to our next one. Please don't forget to follow our podcast on your chosen channel, and please do leave us a review so we can continue to share homeopathy with as many people as possible. If you do have any questions, please do reach out to us on any of our social platforms mentioned in the show notes. We at Homeopathy 24/7 hope to empower you on your natural health journey.